And thank you very much for joining us this afternoon to talk about chemical sciences, careers and future skills. I'm Tanya Sheridan. I'm Head of Policy and Evidence at the Royal Society of Chemistry, and I lead the RSC's work to seek out evidence on the most important topics for the chemistry community, to develop the recommendations from those topics, working with the RSC's wonderful members, and to share those with policy decision makers. Today, we have released a report on the chemistry future workforce and educational pathways. And I'm delighted to say that I am joined today by three excellent panelists who will talk about different elements of the report. We have Jason Love from Edinburgh University. We have Costin Camarasu from AstraZeneca, and we have Della Fries, CEO of the Science Council. And they will bring higher education, employer and science profession perspectives here. I'm also pleased to say that we have a video contribution from Steve Yem MP, who is very enthusiastic about science, which is wonderful. And I will start off first with a quick summary of the report findings as an introduction to the areas for today's discussion. Just as a quick start, the Royal Society of Chemistry commissioned the Future Workforce and Educational Pathways report because we wanted to understand more about who is working in the chemical sciences today, about how the sector is likely to progress, how chemical scientists will be working in future, and the skills that they would need so that we can support our members directly in terms of our careers offer and indirectly through influencing relevant policy and education. One headline finding is that chemistry is an area of potential employment growth in the UK. The projections from the research Lightcast did for us show that chemistry jobs could grow by 6.5% in the next decade, and that is a 30% higher growth rate than the economy average. It showed that there are about 314,000 people working in the chemistry workforce and another 1.4 million in chemistry industries. So it is a big and significant part of the economy. And they are working in a diverse range of occupations. The RSC's Resource of Future in Chemistry shows just what a varied range of different roles a chemistry education can equip you for. It also shows that the growth areas for chemistry skills are particularly in green or sustainability skills and knowledge and digital skills, as well as regulatory. So those are things to bear in mind when planning training or thinking about continuous professional development, as well as for school, university and college curricula. And the research showed that a range of knowledge and transferable skills are needed for a successful career in chemistry, whether it's leadership, management, project management, or also some specialist skills like chemistry, pharmaceuticals, health and safety and environment, and science education. Now, in terms of pathways, we know from the research that about 70% of people in the chemistry workforce have a degree. So higher education is an absolutely vital training pathway for this sector. And that means that the sector response to the financial stresses that it's felt needs to ensure that quality chemistry courses remain accessible to people across the country. And that's something that the RSC is very strongly advocating for. We also know that vocational pathways like apprenticeships are an important and we think underused way into the sector, and the research shows that there is a potential to expand these pathways, make more use of them. So the report's making recommendations around the curriculum for higher education, around digital literacy and advanced digital techniques, how it can build transferable skills, and give a taste of the interdisciplinary nature of science, but also how vocational courses should have recognised vocational qualifications, and training providers and employers can work together so that supply and demand for training are matched, and so that we can offer apprenticeships and vocational routes into the chemistry profession to more people. So I think into our panel discussion now. We will start with Jason, and it would be great to get your reflections as the head of the School of Chemistry at the University of Edinburgh, where you lead research on molecular inorganic chemistry for recovery and recycling of valuable and critical metals, so very much related to the sustainability agenda. And also, I think you're chair-elect of the Heads of Chemistry UK group as well. So it'd be wonderful to get your reflections from a higher education perspective.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here, and it's great to put a higher education perspective onto this report. I'm very pleased to see that the report highlights the significance of the chemical sciences to the UK and beyond, and also recognises that there is a need to provide chemistry graduates with the skills needed for their future careers. And I think this chimes very well with work that's ongoing in the university sector, and also provides really valuable recommendations that I would expect to see being implemented across the university sector. I think our teaching is always evolving, but it's really good to see that there is a need for core chemistry knowledge. I think that's very important. It really allows us to focus in on that, but I'm also very happy to see that there is a need to combine that core chemistry knowledge with interdisciplinary skills, such as in chemical engineering or biological chemistry. And I think that's something that the university sector is beginning to address, but could be done in a better way. Problem solving is also highlighted, and gaining this problem solving mindset. And I think that is a key feature of many chemistry degree programs. We train our students to think about the challenges that they come across during their degree program, and also further afield in their future career. And I think this problem-solving mindset often arises when we co-create courses with stakeholders that can include policymakers and industry collaborations, because it really focuses in on some of the key skills of communication, leadership, and then potentially some commercial understanding as well. So I think that's all good. We also welcome the desire of our incoming students to study chemical sustainability, and a lot of the incoming students see this as being vitally important to their degree programs. And that's providing a lot of changes in what we teach and how we teach in the university sector. And it's also important, I think, to the future workplace, particularly considering the UK's ambitions towards resource circularity, which is something I'm particularly interested in my research, net zero, and also green energy. And so I think our students would be very well placed to progress into these types of industries that are going to be important to the UK's economy in the future. And lots of degree providers are now producing courses that address chemical sustainability, in particular with things like carbon accounting, life cycle analysis, and environmental analysis of chemicals and their use. So I think this can only help, and is particularly highlighted in the report. And finally, I think I just want to say something about employability, because I think getting a degree in chemistry makes you highly employable. It's vital to us in the higher education sector. And I think there's great insight in provided in this report and by the report, in particular, the need for new green skills, sustainable skills, digital literacy, which is becoming increasingly important in terms of AI, and also regulatory knowledge, which is very difficult to say, and also very difficult to comprehend at times. And I think this is becoming crucial. These are crucial skills that industry wants. And we often have ways of doing this in the university degree programs in which we allow our students to gain work experience and learn a lot of these new skills that are going to be important in their future careers. So that's all I want to say at the moment. I really welcome this report and its recommendations.
And that is the best advert I've ever heard for studying chemistry, because it's concise and it's factual and it's lovely. So, having talked about higher education, let's think a bit about some of the vocational pathways into chemistry workforce. Now, Costin is Director of Analytical Sciences at AstraZeneca and an external lecturer at Dublin City University. And I think you've held various roles in pharmaceutical R&D and companies around Europe since doing your PhD. And you have teaching experience at Budapest University of Technology and Economics as well. So Costin, I would love your reflections from an employer perspective on the potential of apprenticeships and on the report more generally.
Thank you very much, Tanya, for your kind introduction. And I would like to thank you all that I'm really delighted to be here at this prestigious event. So as you very well highlighted, I represent AstraZeneca, global leader in pharmaceuticals dedicated to turning scientific innovation into life-changing medicine. We very much welcome the report, as it highlights quite a few areas that we are very interested into and we're very passionate about. And I will try to highlight a few of them. So what do we want right now? At AstraZeneca, our journey of scientific innovation is underpinned by the skills and creativity of our workforce. In today's rapidly evolving environment, there is a compelling need for individuals who are not only experts in chemical sciences, but who also possess a strong aptitude for digital literacy. And we very welcome the focus of the report on digital literacy and an unwavering commitment to sustainability. We are looking for employees who understand the complexities of integrating AI and machine learning in research, who are adept at digital tools that enhance productivity and innovation, and who can contribute towards our sustainability goals by reducing environmental impact. For instance, the ability to utilize advanced data and analytics is becoming as essential as mastering the fundamentals of chemistry. Those skills enable our teams to make quicker, more informed decisions that ultimately save lives. Moreover, we value collaborative spirits, those who thrive in interdisciplinary settings, merging insights from chemistry, biology, and technology to drive innovation. Now, what about the vocational routes? Now and in the future, vocational training is an essential pillar in building this capable workforce. At AstraZeneca, we strongly advocate for expanding vocational pathways such as apprenticeship, which offer practical, on-the-job learning experiences that university setting might not always fully provide. These routes equip individuals with the skills needed to address real-life challenges. Our collaboration with vocational institutions ensures these programs are aligned with the latest industry standards and offer pathways to meaningful certifications. Looking forward, we see an increased emphasis of integration of vocational academic learning. By embedding modules on digital technologies and green chemistry within these programs, we create a future talent pool ready to tackle modern industry demands. So essentially, effective partnership with educational bodies are vital in achieving our workforce goals. At AstraZeneca, we actively engage with universities and training providers to shape curricula that are both relevant and forward-looking. By participating in the Educational Advisory Board and offering robust internship programs, we bridge the gap between academic theory and industrial practice. So, in conclusion, AstraZeneca remains steadfast in our commitment to cultivate an agile, proficient, and diverse workforce ready to face tomorrow's challenges. And we strongly believe that this report highlights very many of our needs. By harmonizing local and global workforce strategy to collaborative engagement with educators and leveraging diverse education pathways, we ensure our legacy of innovation continues to thrive. And thank you. And I look forward to exploring collaborative opportunities that arise from our discussions today. Thank you.
To really realise the potential of the chemical sciences workforce. And a very quick question to you. You talk about participating in university and industry boards. That is one of the recommendations of the report, that more employers get involved. So what would you say to a business that was thinking about getting involved but unsure?
Well, by not getting involved, they are left behind, you know. It's just simple like that. Do they want to be left behind? Their decision.
Thank you. And I think building on the discussion about training and development, Della Freeth is Chief Executive Officer of the Science Council, a charity working to strengthen the collective impact of the science community for public benefit. And before that, you were Executive Director of Education at the Royal College of Physicians and have also held roles in several universities with a research focus on higher and professional education. So Della, it would be wonderful to hear from you about the report from a broader science community perspective and professional development.
Thank you, Tanya. So congratulations to the Royal Society of Chemistry on this really important report. It's definitely applicable across the wider STEM sector. There's so much resonance in other scientific disciplines. So perhaps people want to hear more about chemistry today, but one of my parts of my role is to say how interconnected the interdisciplinary science community is, and so many of the things which the Royal Society of Chemistry have identified are in fact cross-cutting. So the Science Council members, which are professional bodies and learned societies, are an interdisciplinary community that's characterised by being around for the long haul, while continually adapting and innovating to contribute positively to the needs of today and the future. Together, we identified the development of the scientific workforce as our collective key policy priority, as it's something that affects all areas of science. It affects individuals and organisations, and it affects the country as a whole. As the report published by Skills England last year said, employer demand for technical skill is growing, and the professional, scientific and technical grouping is in the top 5 industries with occupations in demand. But the uptake of qualifications is not keeping pace. And this has also come through in your report. For a variety of reasons, employer investment and training has been in decline. So government, educators, employers, professional bodies, we really must all work together to reverse that. I think we're beginning to do so with initiatives around apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are very important in addition to making sure that careers in science are accessible to everyone. Last year, the Social Mobility Commission said that people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds reap the most substantial benefits from apprenticeships. As apprentices progress through higher levels of qualification, the wage gap between them and their more privileged peers gets smaller and smaller. So although the chemistry workforce is dominated by graduates, this route will expand, I am sure, in chemistry, and it is really important around diversity and inclusion. So the report we're launching today, and other reports too, emphasise the importance of transferable skills, which is one of the reasons that science professionals value professional registration with the Science Council or with their individual professional bodies. Registration offers independent recognition of achievement that helps someone to demonstrate to an employer or a client that they have scientific and transferable skills, and they're committed to continuing professional development and a code of conduct. This supports high quality work practices and improvements or innovation, and it helps to earn public trust in science, which must always be maintained. Which transferable skills we want to make sure people have, and how we deliver and assess them must keep pace with technological development and the needs of the country, which is why it's so important that government, educators, employers and professionals work together to make sure we're doing it based on the latest knowledge and understanding. And this report contributes to that, as well as its predecessor technical reports. Last year's Skills England report highlighted 6 key transferable skills needed now and in the future. They were communication, collaboration, problem solving, organised planning and prioritising work, creative thinking, and information literacy. Now, I regard these areas as lifelong learning projects. We begin them at home, we continue them at school and subsequent educational establishments, and we continue them again in the workplace. However, the opportunities afforded by our individual contexts play a part in how much we can practice and develop these important competencies, which is why everyone with influence should also be committed to addressing emergent inequalities. Finally, alongside addressing skills we feel people should have or develop, we should try to notice different skills that people entering the workforce have, since some are likely to benefit workplaces and growth in, as yet, unknown ways. For example, digital natives who work mainly on mobile devices tend to learn in less linear ways than their predecessors. They click through to what they want to learn next and take individual journeys, making judgments about the quality and usefulness of what they're finding along this handheld learning journey. They make interesting connections that were not inherent in the separate sources they viewed or listened to. Now, it's easy to imagine friction from all perspectives upon entering a more linearly structured working environment. And yes, the mobile digital natives will need to adapt and learn to the workplace. So let's help them. And I'm also asking that we think how the skills they bring could boost the work environment and help us in the future. Thank you.
Stella, thank you. There were so many brilliant reflections and talking points in there. I think we're going to pick up on professional development and on transferable skills as well as knowledge potentially in the discussion. But first, let's hear from Steve Yem, MP. Now, Steve is the Labour MP for Mansfield and was one of the 2024 new intake of MPs. He has a science background, and we are very lucky to be working with Steve and other MPs from all parties who love science to help share what the chemical sciences can do for us all with a range of decision makers. And Steve's going to give us some personal reflections on his career and why the skills he gained are ever more in demand. He's going to tell us what he thinks about the report and its recommendations and how they align with the government's agenda.
Hello, I'm Steve Yem. I'm the Member of Parliament for Mansfield, and I'd like to thank the Royal Society of Chemistry for inviting me to speak with you as they launch their new Future Workforce and Educational Pathways report. I think this piece of research is particularly timely given the need to grow our economy, a goal of the new government, and to keep the UK at the forefront of scientific innovation, and also to ensure that chemistry continues to benefit from all of the talent that we have in every corner of our country. The Royal Society of Chemistry's new report identifies the role that chemistry plays as a potential growth sector for the UK, with jobs in that sector expected to grow by 6.5% over the next decade, outstripping the wider UK labour market by 30%. It's obvious to me that there's a demand for trained, high-calibre chemical scientists from industry, but we have to make sure that we can match that by supplying a steady stream of talent. Without that, we risk failing to realise those great opportunities for growth in our economy. So it's vital that policymakers like me, academia, educators and industry are able to come together to ensure that future generations are equipped with those real world experiences for future professional roles to fully allow for the potential of the chemical sciences to be fulfilled in the UK economy. Now, some of the recommendations that are made by the RSC are especially close to my heart. I chose to take a vocational route into my career in chemistry, training on the job in what would now be called, most likely, a degree apprenticeship. So I absolutely endorse the RSC's call to expand those vocational training routes into chemistry jobs, growing the workforce, opening it up to people who maybe don't want to take a long academic path before starting their career in chemistry and the chemical sciences. And similarly, I agree that it would benefit everyone if businesses up and down the country could work more closely with universities and academia, as partnerships like that would create more jobs up and down the country, including in my own constituency of Mansfield in Nottinghamshire. So if local companies work with universities to influence course content, offer student placements, and give training in their specialities, that would mean that graduates will be ready to walk into jobs and help drive growth in their own heartlands. So much of this depends on the early years our children spend in education. The RSC's research shows students want to cover more real-world issues and interests such as sustainability, while teachers believe the current curriculum is overloaded and outdated. So if our students are given more scope to explore relevant topics that they're keen to engage with, they will then be able to see the variety of ways in which STEM education improves our lives and how it can help them achieve their goals. That could make all of the difference in decisions on their future careers. Skills development starts when you're young and it continues right into adulthood. So we need to ensure that we have a joined up system that essentially serves as a talent pipeline. If gifted and enthusiastic young people don't continue to flow into the chemical sciences, we don't just lose out as a sector. We will be missing as a country economic opportunities too. It's going to take a collective effort to realise the potential of the chemical services sector over the next decade, but the RSC's Future Workplace and Educational Pathways report lays out exactly what we need to do. So now is the time to start making the necessary changes. Thank you very much for listening.
So that was a wonderful contribution from Stevie MMP, covers a lot of the themes in the report and also provides an eloquent case for engaging young people and for changing the science curriculum to respond to the challenges of our day. Please, if you're listening on LinkedIn, put some questions in the chat, whatever has occurred to you from what you've heard. We're going to move into a panel discussion now, and to kick us off, a question for you as a panel on continuous professional development. So we've heard from Della and from Costin that CPD is really important, but also that employer investment in training has reduced in the last decade or so. So what's going to get that investment in continuous professional development and turn around the decline in in-work training? Who wants to share reflections on that?
Would you like me to?
Please
start?
do, yes.
Thank you. So I think the point is, it's not simply positive, it's absolutely essential, because most of the future workforce is already in the workforce. in the report, I think you quoted from Innovate UK, and I think the statistic was 71% of the workforce for 2035 is already in the workforce. So with the pace of change with science and technology and the changes in ways of working, people need to be in a permanent state of professional development. So we need to normalise this. And the Royal Society of Chemistry, the other bodies belonging to the Science Council, we're trying to normalise this. It's not a new problem. So how can we be in a position where employees and employers and the science sector and even some national bodies are concerned about how to prioritise and invest in continuing professional development? And what can we do about it? So a couple of suggestions. I think first, perhaps we need to look about how people think about continuing professional development and what constitutes CPD. Removing any barriers to recognising naturally or organically occurring professional development. So, for example, seconding people to new projects, work shadowing, just solving problems in the workplace. That is continuing professional development and doesn't always get labelled as such. So sometimes I think people think too big and too formal when it comes to professional development, and that's what makes it feel defeating. So we can think differently about it, and then people can realise how much they are investing, and they can realise how much more they could invest if they work with the grain rather than in more traditional ways. And secondly, and this is probably quite radical, I think we need to develop a culture in which it's less acceptable to not have continuing professional development as a cultural norm, and therefore think about levers for cultural change. Mostly people talk about time and money when they're talking about not being able to do CPD. But growth and sustainability absolutely depend on continuing professional development. So it's more likely to be about culture than it is about time and money. And I really think we need to look at cultural levers. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may, it's a question here of perception, if I might say like that. But we have data, and we can see that investing in CPD gets results. And we should present that data-driven results. Present research and data showing how CPD initiatives are led to increase productivity, innovation, and employee satisfaction within companies that prioritize professional development. And I think it would be important to highlight the competitive edge, like emphasizing the companies with robust CPD programs often stay ahead of industry trends and maintain a competitive edge to a highly skilled workforce. Then long-term saving illustrate how investing in CPD can lead to long-term savings by reducing turnover and improving employee retention and engagement. And last but not at least, the sector impact, to communicate the broader impact of CPD on the sector, including fostering innovation and economic growth, positioning the UK as a leader in the chemical sciences. Just my 2 pennies.
Thank you, Costin. And Jason, I think you had some reflection.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on how difficult it is to encourage our academic members of staff to take on CPD. And whereas for a lot of our professional service staff, they are really engaged in that process through all of the courses that are provided in the university. But if I think about sustainability and what we're trying to do at my particular university, we are trying to integrate sustainability throughout the school, and so are now encouraging all of our leadership to take sustainability courses, to really think hard about how they can integrate sustainability in everything that they do. This is based on the university strategy as well. So there's I think a really good push across the university, my university in particular, but other universities are doing this as well, to try and encourage people to take on new courses, to think hard about how they do things, especially in a sustainable sense.
Thank you all, and some great reflections here. One of our findings was that a lot of companies don't feel able to think far enough ahead to have a long-term workforce strategy, and also that training can be one of the things where investment is decreased due to budgetary pressures. But I think, Della, your point about thinking differently about CPD really helps in that context, as indeed does yours about the business case for it, Costin. Please do put your questions on LinkedIn, and I will just go for another question from the chair, which is about how we get training providers, employers and government all to work together and move together so that we can increase numbers of apprenticeships and apprentices in the chemical sciences sector. Costin, have you got any reflections you'd like to share on that?
Yes, maybe, just my personal opinion. By providing unified incentives, that will be really good. So government could offer cohesive incentives to encourage both training providers and employers to expand the apprenticeship program. For instance, tax breaks for businesses that host apprentices and grants for educational institutions that establish new training courses, public-private partnerships to foster partnership between government agency, industry leaders, and educational institutions to create standardized, recognized apprenticeship frameworks. Coordinated platforms, establish councils or platforms where representatives from training providers, employers, and government regularly meet to coordinate efforts and share best practices. But the most important, I think, part is just present success stories, promote case studies and success stories that highlight the return on investment that apprenticeship provided to employers and the positive impact on local economies.
Thank you, Della. You're going to share. Can you share some reflections too?
Absolutely. So I actually think that the signs are encouraging around apprenticeships, that people are beginning to move on this and expansion is beginning to happen. But of course, it does take some coordinating to make sure it happens at the kind of pace that we need. And so I think making sure that there is a clarity on the coordination would be really helpful. I also would want to add, I think we need to think more about the contextually relevant ways to help expansion of apprenticeships. So understanding what's worked already and what modifications might be necessary to get it to work elsewhere. Now, the Science Council's doing insight work around this at the moment because things are contextually specific. So this year and next year, we're focusing on connecting employers, very importantly, including small employers who often find apprenticeships more difficult than large employers do, with apprenticeship and, in fact, T-level providers. So by working in places where people feel uncertain or where people highlight gaps, we should be able to contribute to getting the so-called pipeline flowing better. And then we can share the insights we gain from this so that they can be applied elsewhere if contextually relevant. But I think I want to emphasise, whilst everything does need to move forward and move forward more quickly, there's no one size fits all here. So we still will have to pay attention to context.
Thank you, Della. And Jason, would you like to share some reflections?
Yeah, I can say something quite briefly. We only have limited numbers of apprentices in my particular school of chemistry, but then we do encourage them, and we do think hard about how we can exploit or explore those possibilities. And often we hire people as apprentices in our technical teams to provide technical support in our laboratories, in our teaching laboratories, and that's a fantastic way for a younger person to kind of move into the university sector. I think the thing that we find difficult is how do you fund them? And whilst there is some governmental support there, we can only fund a relatively few number. And so we would like a more cohesive, maybe joined up way of dealing with this.
So sounds like more coordination here between the different parties involved is going to be the key to increasing apprenticeship numbers. We've had a very specific question about apprenticeships actually on LinkedIn. I don't know whether anybody knows about this, but there's some curiosity about part-time work-based honours degree apprenticeships, which I think is a level 6.
That would be level 6 in England, but the levels are different in Scotland, of course. So there are degree apprenticeships at both bachelor's level and master's level, which have got quite a long history now, and they're perhaps clustered in certain areas where that makes a sensible vocational route. I think there's been some controversy recently about the master's level ones, but I think what's important is that workplace-based learning, however it's delivered, through placements or through apprenticeships, is really important to having a really well-equipped pipeline coming into your workforce in the scientific disciplines.
Thank you, Della. Jason or Costin, anything to add on degree apprenticeships?
Only that we don't really have many in my school. I know of other universities like Manchester Met. They do take on a lot of degree apprentices, and so it clearly works in some areas, but maybe not in others.
I think there are several universities offering the degree apprenticeship pathway. Just thinking about the broader skills pipeline, apprenticeships, degrees, and other pathways, what do you think is the biggest threat or challenge to ensuring the health of that pipeline, so that 29% of the workforce that isn't already in the workforce? Jason, did you want to start on that?
I was going to say no, but I'm going to have to have a go now, aren't I? So I think one of the biggest threats that I find about trying to move people through the skills pipeline is really the social aspects in some respects. I think that if we want to ensure that we widen participation and get people able to move into the university sector, let's say, and do a degree, and then move forward through the degree program, then there are significant disincentives, I think, at the moment to do that. There are lots of incentives because there are lots of exciting things that you can do at a university, and there's lots of exciting things that you can learn. But I think depending on your background, especially if you're from a poorer background, I think that is exceptionally challenging at the moment. And universities are working exceptionally hard to try and change that perception. So I think that's a big threat, I think, because I think if you want to have a diversity of people studying chemistry, which is required, if you get a good diversity of people, then you're getting a good diversity of people moving into the workforce. I think that there needs to be a lot of thought about how we encourage people into the university sector and into degree programs.
Thank you. And the next question I think we have will be on HE, but Della, your reflections on the biggest challenge for securing that pipeline of talent.
So I suppose my answer is twofold. First of all, I think there's a really big challenge in giving everyone a strong basic competencies and understandings from which they can develop onwards, and then showing them a wide range of futures towards which they could develop according to their preferences and their talents. So there's room for so many more people in the pipeline, but to develop and retain salience with the pipeline so that they would enter and stay within the science workforce pipeline, people need to see something they feel they could develop towards. And then crucially, once they are there in the pipeline, they need to see the next phase of development and upskilling. So this is not unique to science, but it's how people will sort themselves into different areas of the workforce. So if science wants to attract people, it will need to do this. And there's lots of people working on it in different places. Secondly, it's hard enough to get people into your pipeline. So I would say don't sift people out of your pipeline too readily. And even sometimes doing it unintentionally through the unintended consequences of unnecessary requirements. So I think we need to be more positively welcoming of kind of zigzag development trajectories rather than mildly disapproving or even outright pejorative. Because realistically, people don't go from A to B in a straight line through their working lives. And so why are the kind of majority of the visualizations of a pipeline akin to flowing along a pipe, a real pipe, until a person leaks, so-called, out of it? So at the moment, we have this image that people kind of flow along and then leak out. And then we have some supported entry routes and we have some supported returners schemes. But I think let's focus on trying to avoid people leaking out, or indeed people selecting themselves out of the pipeline because they don't see anything that's attractive ahead of them. And that lies in narrative, and it lies in giving people insights into things that will capture their imagination and seem achievable as a next step, because a lot of people won't be able to think ahead further than the next step. And then you show them the next step, and then you show them the next step. I'm sure we can do it.
I'm sure we can. And I mean, brief question, how helpful is the pipeline as a metaphor here in terms of scientific careers and workforce, would you say?
It's a bit rigid, it's a bit limited, but you know, I haven't offered a better one, so I'm reluctant to criticise it too much.
It's rigid, yet it's useful. I think I probably would struggle to find an alternative. Costin.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the biggest challenge, in my personal opinion, is the skills mismatch and rapid technological advancement, you know. As the industry evolves, particularly with the rise of digital technology and sustainability requirements, educational programs might lag, leaving graduates without the relevant skills needed in the workforce. Now, to give an example, 2 years ago, we didn't have a clue about the new job that's now on the rise, which is prompt engineer. Prompt engineering never existed 2 years ago. Now, today, it's very important. Everyone is looking for such persons. You know, additionally, to be honest, the speed that scientific information becomes outdated, it's accelerating at an exponential rate. In essence, we can talk about the fact that nowadays, 2 to 3 years, the scientific information becomes outdated. So by the time somebody finishes the university, a lot of information that was taught, it's outdated. Now, additionally, the aging workforce, particularly in technician role, threatens the transfer of critical knowledge. This requires both the rapid updating of educational content and enhanced engagement between education and industry leaders to ensure alignment. So there are some, but on my side, I believe that we can't prepare for jobs that we don't know they will exist in a few years' time. I think that's the biggest threat or maybe challenge.
Thank you. And that is a big challenge. And I think goes back to what Della was saying about the most important skills for all of us in the workforce and why we need to see CPD as a career-long or even a lifelong project.
Yeah.
And communicate that and the case for it. We've got a question. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and a lot of flexibility is required from both, from industry and from educators.
Yeah. We've got a a question on LinkedIn about the pressures in higher education, financial issues, and what can be done to ensure enough chemistry graduates to meet future demand. Jason, are you happy to go?
I think I'm going to have to go with that one. Yes, of course, there are financial pressures at the moment across the university sector, and that has been recognised. There are universities that are closing or reducing their chemistry departments, and that's a real problem, a real issue for the whole of the chemistry programs across the university sector. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be enough chemistry graduates to meet that future demand, as a lot of universities are taking a lot of people through chemistry degree programs. And so I think that works relatively well. And I think the issue here is that we still need to encourage people to do chemistry at university level. And that happens at many different points through someone's development, a lot of which is going to concern school teachers and actually having pupils actually taking chemistry and enjoying chemistry and finding it exciting, such that they want to then move into a chemistry degree program. It involves us as chemistry teachers to talk to prospective applicants, to do outreach, to show people why chemistry is such an important topic and why it's such an exciting thing to learn about. And then I think it also needs industry to get on board as well, and potentially do the kind of the outreach to show that how you can use a chemistry degree in your future careers as well. And so I think it's across the piece actually that everybody needs to get involved and show why it's important to do chemistry, why it's exciting, and how you can actually, what kind of career can you have if you study a chemistry degree. I think there's a multitude of careers that you can have if you study a chemistry degree. That's why I'm so excited about it. But people need to recognise this, and it's something that the RSC have been highlighting for quite a while.
Thank you, Jason. And I think what you say about the excitement of chemistry and getting pupils engaged, that also picks up some themes from our other discussion panel for the launch of this report, which will now be available on the RSC's YouTube channel. And that is the education panel from earlier today. Costin, your brief thoughts on HE financial pressures and ensuring enough chemistry graduates.
Yeah, thank you. I think Jason made a very strong point here on making attractive, so the career in chemistry becomes really attractive. Now, the report itself is doing a really good job on that, showing the increase in that it's expected in the future regarding the careers in chemistry. Again, we could address better what it's in for our possible graduates in terms of a career in chemistry. And that being a bit more visible, a bit more better advertised. That it's a good point, and I think it needs a little bit of think about it. In terms of industry, obviously, we need also to insert the digital dimension to it. I mean, show the possibilities that the addition of generative AI could transform actually a good part of the chemistry career. So that it will be from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Della, your thoughts on enough chemistry graduates?
Well, I'm sure it was covered by the panel an hour before us, but the pipeline starts so much earlier, and particularly so in the UK, because we have a more specialist education career path, apart from in Scotland, than most countries would. And so people are selecting themselves out pretty early. So I think the key lies in work in primary schools and the first half of secondary schools, because science is exciting and science isn't predictable. And we also need to persuade people that that is also exciting. But also science offers a space for everybody. And that is unusual. So it's something that we should say more about. And I think there are ways to do it, but we need to do it before people have already selected themselves out of this pipeline.
So we want science to be inclusive. We know science is exciting. We want it to be nice and inclusive, and we want to make sure that it is for everybody. And I think that's also something that the recommendations of the report speak to. Now we're getting near the close, so I'm just going to invite each panellist to share some very brief closing reflections, and apologies to anybody who's put questions on the chat in LinkedIn in the last 3 or 4 minutes. Unfortunately, we won't have time for those. Who shall I go to first? Costin, your brief closing reflections.
It was a very interesting discussion, raised a few very important questions inside me, that I need to think about those. Maybe we should do a better job at advertising. The chemistry pathway show that actually working in pharma industry at this moment in time, we are battling disease day by day. That gets me out of the bed in the morning, and the knowledge that maybe tomorrow we will solve cancer problem. It's a war, against disease that we are doing day by day. Of course, chemical career is bigger than that, but that's an aspect of it. And I'm really happy that such a report came to be published, and I'm really happy that it creates a stepping stone to get a skilled workforce in chemistry sciences. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was an inspiring point about getting out of bed to combat disease, which I think you and many others in the chemistry workforce are doing. And that's one of the things that people particularly value about science. Della, your closing.
Thank you. It's been a great discussion, so thank you to my fellow panelists. I think that this report's actually really important because both its breadth and its depth. So there's a lot of detail in there, and people need to take some time to pick that apart a little bit and think about how to take it forward. There is also the great breadth there. Some of the things in there can be addressed now and in the next few years. Others we need to start addressing, but they're going to take a much longer period of time. So I think it'll be important to have 2 timelines running, and make sure that which can happen soon does, and that which needs to have a nice run up to it or chipping away at it, that also happens in parallel. But thank you, it's a great report.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all your contributions and reflections. Jason.
Yeah, I can agree with the rest of the panel. It's been a really lively discussion, which is really good. I think the report has some fantastic aspects to it, some excellent recommendations that I know that my colleagues across the university sector, when they're developing degree programs, that need to take on board everything that's changing. There's loads of change going on. There's loads of excitement. When I did my degree, I didn't get taught about DNA or anything like that, or genetics, and now we do that. It's a core part of our degree program. So it's a very exciting time, I think, to be studying chemistry. And I think that the recommendations from the report really highlight the way forward. especially in the terms of trying to develop some skills. And I think skills are going to become increasingly important for chemistry graduates because they allow chemistry graduates to really kind of move into very, very different directions. Even though they have a core chemistry degree, I think they're going to have a whole skill set that's going to be very, very important to future employers and to understanding and really getting into the challenges of the next century. So I think it's a great report, and I'm very happy to try and promote it within the university sector.
Thank you very much, Jason. And it remains to say a huge thank you to all three of you, Costin, Della, Jason. Your reflections, your contributions have been excellent. This broadcast will be available on the RSC's YouTube channel, and the Future Workforce and Educational Pathways report and the data report by Lightcast are all available to read, use, share on the RSC's website. And so please, everybody, make use of them. Thank you to the LinkedIn audience for listening, and thank you to the Future YouTube audience for listening. And please do get in touch with us if you'd like to be part of the efforts to make these recommendations a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.